People are going to wake up this year when they go to the games in 25 and say, oh, look, there's extended netting. Oh, that's nice. When did they decide this? And at the end of 22, then why the hell were we sitting here for the last 2 seasons? Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming back to another edition of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. I'm here with Brianna Ludwig, soon to introduce our guest for today. But before we go to that, we want to talk about some news at Foul Ball Safety Now. Foul Ball Safety Now, for those who are listening for the first time, is a 6-year effort. I've been working with a journalist by the name of Brendan now for 6 years. Brianna's been with me for about a year. And what we do is we follow the news in foul ball safety. We've been interviewing people and we've been learning about this history that most people don't know about, and we feel like people can learn about it in a short amount of time by visiting the website of Foul Ball Safety Now. The news that I wanted to discuss was disturbing because it was right here on TV during a playoff game. It was game 2, Tigers versus Mariners, and it took place 2 nights ago where the bat, excuse me, broke and went into the seats, creating a situation of danger. I didn't know that until they showed the replay going to commercial during a pitching change. They showed in slow motion the bat coming into the seats from the seat perspective, and you heard the baseball announcer say, "Yikes." So that was the way they went to commercial during break to identify the issue with the ad lib from the announcer. So that was very telling. Because of that, America got to see for the first time together a situation that can potentially start a huge conversation. By hearing an announcer go, "Yikes, watch out," what is he exactly saying? He's exactly saying what we just all saw together. But you didn't see much on social media in the last 48 hours. Fortunately, we do have a video of this clip, and we hope that once people learn of this matter, certainly the people who were sitting in that section where the bat flew over the net, they went, "Oh, yikes," because the bat was cut in half, maybe 3/4 of a bat, with charred points and a bat coming into the seats is no way for a professional industry to continue to operate and have, business as usual, as if this being the norm, but it is, and that's a shame that this is business as usual. I talked a little bit about an issue, it was Yankees versus Orioles on June 22nd, also not a broken bat, a bat that flew out of the man's hand. He released the bat. Sometimes these guys don't squeeze the bat hard enough, or it slips out of their hands, and it happens, and the bat slipped out of this player's hands, and it clearly went over the net. And it was a Sunday afternoon, June 22nd, Yankees versus Orioles, and we have a video of that one as well. Luckily, nobody was sitting in those seats. Now that we've seen this as a possibility of being a major problem, why isn't this a prevention rather than a situation where a bat is allowed to come in, and if somebody's in there, it's a bad day for them? I wanted to bring that up so you guys may be enjoying the playoffs and watching these games. I just wanted to get those things in front of you and let everyone look into this as well. The player's name was Polanco. He had 2 home runs for the Mariners, but he's the one who also had the broken bat. He had an infield hit. It trickled into the infield. He got a hit. The broken bat flew into the seats. And fortunately, we were able to capture the video. We'll see where that all goes. And hopefully a bigger conversation is going to come from it. All right, Brianna, why don't you introduce our guest for today? We're excited. If people are not familiar, we turn the tables. Our guests come to us with questions, and we are all ready to respond to their questions. They bring their own work experience or their own personal experience. They've had an opportunity to get informed about the issue over the last few days or week. Now they are prepared for us. So we were looking forward to their questions. And Brianna, why don't you take it from here?
Thanks, Jordan. I'm looking forward to this insightful conversation today. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest today, Tony Blas. He is the owner of a market research company. Tony, how are you today?
I'm good, Brianna. How are you?
Doing good.
Hey, Tony, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. So we're excited for you to take the reins and bring us
Okay,
some
great.
questions.
Yeah,
And we're all ears. And are you ready to go?
I am ready. I usually start depth interviews or focus groups with trying to start from the beginning, but that may be a little bit too primary for your listeners. So let me just ask you if you wanted to tell us about the first incident that galvanized you to get into this fight.
Appreciate that. It was a newscast. So it was probably morning news. It was a high profile incident in Houston. It was in 2019. And I saw a little girl get seriously injured by a line drive off of a Chicago Cubs player, and it did serious damage. And I knew as a baseball fan that these things could occur. And soon after, I got started and found Brendan, and we've been going at it since.
Do you really know how pervasive the problem is? Because I've looked online and the numbers are so wild. I've never seen this after 4 decades in data collection. We've got NBC saying there were 800 injuries over 8 seasons, and Bloomberg says there were over 1,700 people injured in a single MLB season. So 100 to 1,700, which one is right?
Well, sure. The Bloomberg study, I'm not going deeper into that. I think the NBC study is more accurate because it's based on data that was supplied by 4 of the 30 MLB clubs' first aid contractors. And if you take those numbers and then you take maybe the 26 other teams that did not partake, but you averaged it out, it wasn't just the 800 reported, it was 700 plus, 707 from 4 teams. So that would be about 175 per team. And if you multiply, and that was over 8 years. So if you multiplied 30 times 175, considering that maybe 4 is enough of a sample to extrapolate, and then you can go 30 times 175, which would be over 5,000. I write so did an LA Times reporter. He wrote 4,500. I put 5,000 approximately based on that math over an 8-year period, maybe, 175 per team over 8 years. That study was from 2012 to 2019, 8 seasons. Long short of it is maybe 5,000 people reported to first aid at the major league level. Not all of them had broken eye sockets or concussions, but most of them were from baseball related injuries at the ballpark, baseball bats maybe as well. But then there's also 5 times as many more games in other professional leagues. So you can only imagine that a lot of these things just go unnoticed.
Oh, no, I was just going to say another reason why it's so difficult and the data is all over the place is because the MLB isn't required to report when injuries.
Oh,
So
okay.
a lot of these studies are done independently, and the MLB doesn't really comply with most of them. Like Jordan was saying, that one study was done with the independent contractors who worked for the team, so it wasn't necessarily the teams complying. So a lot of the injuries that we find are actually self-reported online, people sharing images, videos of things that has happened to them. We just shared a report that's on the website right now you guys can check out just from the 2025 season and a few seasons past of things that we found. It's really hard for these fans to get their stories out there because if a journalist doesn't do a piece on it, then they're almost forgotten about unless they self-report it on social media. It's hard to get a lawyer because most lawyers won't take the case. They just kinda get lost, which is sort of insane because the MLB tracks every single ball, the velocity, and where the ball is going, but sadly, they don't really have to comply with any research that's being done. So we don't know the answers for sure.
I've read that they don't have a centralized injury database.
There's no transparency required. So there's the general public who are spoon-fed, what baseball wants to share with them. They're not told in the winter months that you can expect these amount of balls. We have something on foul ball safety now called Exhibit A1, which is a report published by this company or organization called 538 back in 2019. Brendan and we took a look at it earlier this year, and we feel like we incorporated our own data into that report, which demonstrates the regularity of just how many foul balls come at people every single year. People can kind of connect the dots themselves and certainly realize that in 2019 or before, based on this data, just how many foul balls may have whizzed by their head all those years. It raises interesting questions. We know some of those people that have been hit directly with those unfortunate numbers. Yeah, there's a lot of information that people can find at Foul Ball Safety Now, and we're just putting information in front of people so they can discover for themselves.
I was interested to hear that the thing you were talking about first was about a bat breaking. So
Yeah.
it's actually beyond just foul ball injuries.
Yeah, it's more of the foul ball variety. I don't think there's more than 1,000 bats that may potentially make it to the seats as opposed to 350,000 foul balls potentially making it to the It's a whole different category, but,
Gotcha.
if 1 or 5 bats slip a year, that's just too many. We have 2 videos now of bats from this year that are flying into these seats. Why is it business as usual? Why aren't people now just pulled out of those seats immediately and told not to sit there for the rest of the year until they address the issue? It's not really happening. It's not. Brendan and I will be getting on a work call later on, and we may be writing a letter to the Seattle Mariners to let them know what the world saw, and the announcer going, "Yikes!" But
Yeah.
will they react? At least we'll know that we imparted the message before the next home game in a few days. Because those people who are going to the next home game, they're not on lookout. The people that were there, sure, they're on lookout, but we haven't seen one of them speak on social media about it yet. And if we do, we'll certainly find out. Brianna, maybe you can search while we're talking. But this was all fresh from Sunday night. As of yesterday, 24 hours after the incident, there was not a peep from America about it. Except, no, that was something different. Yeah, that was something
So
different.
are these injuries fairly unreported?
What happens is, we were saying at the NBC study, when people they do document the incident within the ballpark or the first aid contractor who works for the team. Let's say the Dodgers or the Mets or the Yankees, they may have a company that comes for 3 hours during the games, before, during, and after, just in case anyone gets hurt, slips and falls, gets hit by a foul ball. They have some medical on staff they contract out with. So maybe there's a staff of 4 or 6 people that come to a ballpark. If anyone slips and falls or gets hit by a ball, they're there. They do document them. We've been following some lawsuits. Brendan and I have been contacted by a few law firms. Brendan was able to get independent work from a law firm preparing for a trial, an alleged bad incident, somebody got hit. We're just trying to gather all, let people know what they may have missed, let everyone know what we believe is the state of the union now in 2025 about what to look out for. But unfortunately, baseball may only tell you when you get to the game to be careful of a foul ball, but you're already there. And last I checked, we're not superheroes.
Right. Well, it seems like there might be some signage or whatever,
Yeah.
but my understanding from the website and other research is that the law mostly goes along with it's fan beware, or
Right.
and I wonder if when we talk about foul balls, that was just in the news very recently. We all
Mhm.
saw the woman take a little boy's foul ball, and I think
Yes. Yes.
and so but I think the impression a lot of people have is that getting a foul ball is a great trophy. You
Right.
might even get it's signed by a player or two, and then I wonder if there isn't a perception that the fans are the ones putting themselves in harm's way.
Yeah, most people come to game thinking foul ball and fun, or will this finally be the time? Similar to that woman who looked like she was greedy and she wanted the ball, but she's also probably been experiencing since she's a little girl. I hope one day I get a ball. And she came so close, and that man came right under her feet and took the ball from her. She was pissed. But because she's been carrying around that feeling, how dare you? I was so close. And that's what people do of all ages. They still come to the game hoping for that trophy, that 1 in a million chance of catching that ball. She was probably not liked for a couple of days online, but she probably realized how it looked on video later on, because I think she brought her childhood feelings to to that experience, and she felt hurt that, "How dare this man take this ball from me?" And she was so close finally to get the ball. That's what we think going to the game, but I think we can certainly change those minds with a little bit of effort.
So I'm not the biggest baseball fan, but I'm assuming that people who know the baseball, the way it works, might even be more inclined to sit in the sections where they would have that opportunity, where the foul balls there must be places where the foul balls are more likely to go, right?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of people bring gloves. They'll sit where the home runs are hit, and they're trying to catch balls. But it raises also questions because we see videos of kids and other people getting hit by these home run balls, and maybe they're not quite ready to be exposed to those balls. Even with gloves, we've seen children, on the field during all-star home run hitting competitions where they're out in the outfield, but still 300 feet away from a 100-mile-an-hour line drive. These
Mm.
11-year-olds are not ready, and this kid got hit in the head.
Mm.
So why is he out there? He's not ready. He's not age appropriate. All these kind of things, what we want is to start a conversation, to get a dialogue, to get agencies to pay attention to things they may have missed. Should 4-year-olds be sitting in certain sections? We have that video up on the website, Foul Ball Safety Now, Exhibit A, which is that 5-minute ESPN production. It's a very disturbing video because it's a thread of children getting seriously injured. And there's still 30 to 40 ballparks that still have no netting past end of dugouts. So why would they allow 4-year-olds to continue to come to these situations where they're going to be exposed? Why isn't management just marketing their sport adults only? If you want to take a line drive to the head, well, there's a good chance this week you'll be inches away from getting to that. And maybe it's not appropriate for your child. It's
Wow.
predictable, right? Why
Yeah,
would we
well,
allow why are we putting these kids in position to take a line drive to the neck? Now,
yeah.
percentage-wise, will it miss most of the time? But we're not supposed to be doing that kind of business in a civilized society. We're not supposed to, be walking on the buildings where, several rocks a week are gonna be coming down from the 40th floor. We wouldn't put our kids in a situation. It's not acceptable. So I want people to think that and realize that, and maybe even wake up to the fact that they were in those sections for many years, and management knew about Exhibit A1. They knew how many balls went in what directions. They've been tracking for the last decade or two, every exit velocity, every launch angle. They can't dance away from that one, and we just want to just tell everyone to connect the dots and let's have a conversation. So that's what we're thinking about, Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, people have said that fans are, maybe, distracted by cell phones or other
Mhm.
things and, not paying attention. Does that hold any water to you?
It really does not, because even staring without blinking, we have another exhibit called Exhibit A2. That's an umpire, Hunter Windelstadt, and he's doing his job, and he's 100 feet away. He's 90 feet from home to first, and then he's about 10 feet behind, and he gets one right in the middle of his head, and he hasn't been back to work in 4 months. So think about the people just on the side 100 feet away, just past end of dugouts. They're paying attention to the game. Maybe they even know a ball may be coming. Maybe there's even a sign on the cup holder on the seat in front of them that says, "Be careful of a foul ball." Really? You're gonna go into your pocket and get change You're gonna take a sip of your drink. Even if them staring without blinking, it's not conducive. You're not in a position as a human being, we're not superheroes, to get out of the way. And ask baseball players, they don't allow their own families to sit there because they know their workplace is dangerous for fans. So they make sure their own families are sitting in certain sections so their balls won't be hurting them.
So, have you encountered any resistance from teams or even the media when you've been trying to document injuries?
Well, what we do is we feel like there's some complicit nature to the media within the game. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but there's sort of not wanting to go long form on this issue. There's plenty of journalists in New York and LA that work the games for all the newspapers and all the publications, but I believe they are looking the other way. They're not going long form on this issue, and I was working with a playwright, NYU guy, Charlie, and we wrote, this bit. It's a little bit of a portrayal on my journey, my last 40 like a 45-minute play. And we talk about the publishers are not really encouraging the editors to have their writers to get too much into this, because if they do, it'll piss off the managements of the teams. And we all know the history of sports sections that take a lot of the pages of the newspapers. So they don't want to pee off the Dodgers or the Yankees or the Mets. So that's why they don't go long form. You don't see week-long series. You'll see something like on buy the newspaper this week. We're having a week-long special investigation on this. You don't see that on foul balls. We're still waiting for the journalists, from the major newspapers and magazines to go long on this, but they'll have to include how the history of sports writers, I believe, more or less look the other way. And they're writers and they're journalists. Put on your investigation hat for 5 minutes. That's what I want. And they haven't. And I believe that's because management hasn't encouraged them to do so. They're very capable, and they may be also telling their own family members to sit behind nets.
So, well, what do you say to people, lawyers or representatives that say the baseball rule is settled law?
Settled law, like that's the rule of the land, so to speak?
I think that's the general feeling.
Yes. So in most states, to a degree, it is recognized, and that's why it's a deterrent for MLB to finally fix their house. It's not only their house, there are 30 ballparks, but they also pay the salaries of 120 affiliates, and they also have partner leagues called the MLB Partner Leagues. I've been following the 169 professional clubs other than the 30 major league clubs. That's 199 clubs, all professional baseball, all hitting balls at 100 miles per hour, and all potentially inside and outside doing serious damage. We're dealing with a Queens College investigation right now. People can go to Foul Ball Safety Now, look at the Queens College investigation. We already have 3 letters out to them based on a student athlete who contacted me because they're concerned about hitting a child. If people will Google Earth Queens College, you'll see there's an elementary school right next door, and these student athletes, so during practice and games, know that these kids are walking right next to the fields. And this student athlete is telling me, we're worried that one of us is going to crush or do worse to a child. I said, okay, that's legit. We wrote 3 letters to the administration. We're not targeting just Queens College. We're not saying it's only at Queens College. We know that colleges and those 169 other professional ballparks, balls fly out onto the pavement. They fly into glass and parking lots and break them. And they also, unfortunately, in Modesto, California, you'll see on the website Unknown Modesto, 2 years ago in the summer, a woman was struck in the head waiting outside the ballpark to go in. We were contacted by a law firm. They were preparing for their trial, and we learned that that trial became a settlement for the plaintiff, but we don't know the details of the settlement. The lawyer contacted me as they were getting ready for trial, and they just wanted to pick our brain for an hour or so. So they did. I was in Brooklyn, New York over 20 years ago, long before I got involved. I don't know if anyone has ever been to the Cyclones games in Coney Island, but we were at Surf Avenue, young and old. We're all hanging out, group of us, and this young boy gets hit in the forearm. We're just standing outside, comes right outside. Why are 10 or 15 balls within a 3-hour period raining on concrete or windows or people's heads or this young boy's forearm? And why is that business as usual? I have an expression I've been saying on these recordings. We are really in the dark ages, and it's still 2025. Of course, I hope we can all go back in 10 years from now and say, you remember that when we were in the dark ages back in 2025. But Brianna and I and Brendan and others were in healthy aggression, and we hope others are going to find this conversation and start addressing it.
So you were involved in the new netting regulations, right? That just premiered this season, right?
I mean, I certainly had something to I was definitely a thorn in MLB's side. When MLB came out with an announcement in 2022, I already had 2 netting reports up in earlier 22 and the previous year, 2021. So I was following this issue when MLB came out with some statement at the end of December of 2022 that said by 2025, all of the other professional clubs that their affiliates would have extended netting. Most of them did. Still, the partner leagues, most of them have not. There's 30 to 40 that don't, out of the 49, don't have extended netting. But even extended netting is an improvement. It's not solution. I don't want to give people the impression. So MLB is doing this piecemeal and suggesting and making some sort of strong suggestions about these teams are going to upgrade. But why did they wait 2.5 years? That too is also absurd. When a netting company can come in 4 days and do extended netting, why would they give them 2.5 years to conduct business as usual in a much unsafer environment? There's just so much here that really reminds us all of there's not a real sense of commitment or authenticity here. It's just it's really just phony and tiny measures that are improvements to some extent, and then kicking the can down the road for 2 years. People are gonna wake up this year when they go to the games in 25 and say, "Oh, look, there's extended netting. Oh, that's nice. When did they decide this?" And at the end of 22, then why the hell were we sitting here for the last 2 seasons? I just saw that Exhibit A on 2019, and wait a second. I just saw these line drives hitting kids in the head, and we could have been part of that for the last 2 seasons. They could have gotten it done in a few days.
Wow.
So yeah. So there's
But
no
you're saying
regulatory
netting isn't
agencies.
enough?
Well, no, you need dialogue and you need agencies to give us some kind of stamp of approval. It's above our pay grade, but I clearly believe certain agencies should have been on this conversation long, long ago, and they would have said to us, "This is how you guys need to conduct business, and that's the only way it's gonna work." And age appropriate may be part of it. People may wanna associate baseball with flirting with the danger element, which is fine, but just advertise it that way. 18 and older, similar to, like, running with bulls, like in places like Spain. It's obviously dangerous if you're not running the right way or but you're taking that risk. If baseball wants to market their sport in a way where we can all truly understand what the risks are, then why don't just do it to 18 and older and tell us that there's a good chance you'll get a line drive a little right or a little left of your neck or your head. Good chance of it, but you're not gonna bring the kids.
So are you saying there's really no measures that would make it perfectly safe?
There's no conversation that is attempting to make that a happening, no.
No, just even with the so-called extended netting that we see implemented this season, there's still balls and bats flying over the nets that are injuring people. So it's just not enough until people stop getting injured. And it's definitely possible with the technology that we have available to us right now, then it's not going to be enough, especially if they're still marketing towards children.
But even with the new rules about the netting, some of the stadiums you said aren't even complying with what they were supposed to have complied with this year.
A few of them have not complied, but there's still 30 to 40 teams in professional baseball which work with MLB. MLB may not be paying the salaries of those particular teams, but they're called actually the MLB partner league teams because Major League Baseball has been running experiments with them. You know, the guinea pigs, the test tube. Let's try the no umpire rule with the MLB partner leagues. We'll pay them a few bucks. They're doing business with them, right? They're called the
Mhm.
MLB partner league teams, but it's professional baseball. It's the same as the other 120 affiliates. But again, when I came out with my first report in 2021, there were more than 40 plus teams of the 120 affiliates that had no netting past end of dugouts. When that announcement was made in December of 2022, there were still 40 plus teams that had no netting past end of dugouts. When I did another report in April of 2023, 4 or 5 months after that baseball announcement about teams doing upgrades that they need to do them by 2025, not one of those teams got proactive and said, "Why don't we just get it over with and let's get it upgraded?" No, so they didn't. They allowed business as usual for the next 2 years, waited for the very last moment. A lot of these owners, they're small market. You know, they may have rationalized saying, "Well, why should we go for the extra 40K or whatever it costs to do the upgrade? We don't even know if we're gonna be here in 2 years," right? It's like if you were gonna do a renovation on your house and you're leaving in a year, would that really increase the value of our house? All of that stuff is open and fair game.
So what are the specific netting standards that you wanna see?
I wanna see somebody say, "Jordan, Brianna, guys, move away. We got it from here." It's above our pay grade. What do I know? All I know is I wanna demonstrate something to you. You're the agency, the MIT guys, the math and science guys. You tell us how high, far, and wide. You tell us what's age appropriate. What do we know? But please pay attention to a memo you may have missed. And now I think we hope these agencies will say, "We should have saw this information years ago. We would have been on the scene a long time ago." Right? Better late than never.
You must be getting people's attention.
Well, I'm gonna stay the course. My instincts have been to stay with this conversation. We've interviewed so many people who are searching for some reconciliation. Unfortunately, people that have been blinded by baseballs. Unfortunately, Erwin Goldblum's wife, who was killed at the Dodger game back in 2018. Lovely guy, wrestling coach. He's in his 90s. But he had a bad day, very bad day. His wife died a few days after she was struck in the Loge level. And we're aware of people in different parts of the ballpark that have been seriously injured, not just what's expressed on the ESPN video, the 5-minute video, which we call Exhibit A. So when we speak to these people and we hear their stories, it's really all about how do we deal with those people and how do we try to a lot of these people deserve reconciliation. So they're in baseball purgatory, if that's the right way of putting it. They don't know how exactly to feel about the game anymore. There's no genuine apology available to these people that have been really seriously damaged because baseball can't truly say, "We're sorry." What are you sorry about? You mean it won't happen to the next person? Well, we can't exactly tell you that. I put the words together, gift remorse, because the last little girl we interviewed, she's now 30, but she was conscious for 4 or 5 days after getting hit with a ball as a 9-year-old. She's now 30, and she has physical and psychological issues just dealing with all of it, 20 years plus after and being a mom of 2. She's a little upset with her parents, I think, because she's going through something called gift remorse. What happens, these teams will give you stuffed animals, and they'll give you tickets to come back anytime, and sometimes, the parents will be like, "Let's take the tickets." So, instead of this girl's parents, putting their foot down and saying, "We don't need your tickets. How about taking care of the issue so it doesn't happen to anybody else?" She may be thinking maybe her parents should have taken that approach. She may have enjoyed going to games as a 10 or 11 and a 12-year-old, but she's now a little older now. And then there was another woman, also going through gift remorse. She got married on the field where she was struck by a ball, not serious injury at all. She did have serious face for a few days, but it went away and she doesn't have any long term, but she was certainly traumatized. And she said to the team, "Can I get married on the field?" And they did. She paid for the caterer, but she got married on the field, and they had the party, I guess, at the facility. I don't wanna mention the field right now. And then she said to me, "Hey, Jordan, if I met you, a few years earlier, I would have been more inclined to tell him to address the problem instead of what can I get from the team for free." So it's very interesting. Gift remorse are the words I put together. Some people may be experiencing that. But there's one story I'll just share with you and then we can move on. My lawyer in New York, Lynn, introduced me to her girlfriend who was blinded as a teenager at Shea Stadium. And Lynn knew I was working on these things and interviewing people, but she happened to know her old girlfriend who was 14 at the time. And now then we met Jenny. Jenny, a few years ago, Jenny tells us years later she's a mom of an 8-year-old and the boy's playing Little League. And she's nervous maybe because of what happened to her. And maybe she's also making the kid feel nervous. So the 8-year-old quits baseball, but I believe he probably quit because he was making his mother feel nervous. And now that 8-year-old may be 30, and that 30-year-old who's maybe saying, "Oh, you don't wanna play baseball to your own child. Look what happened to your grandmother." So those families are kinda ruined. There's no free, wholesome apple pie experience from generation to generation. It's more of, how are they gonna sweep it under the rug? How are they gonna tell their next generation of children not to play the game?
Of course, I have to come back to the LA Dodgers, who
Sure.
my understanding is they haven't even complied with the basic betting standards.
Basic netting standards? I'm not really sure what basic netting standards are. They may have extended netting down the lines, but the
Mhm.
Dodgers did raise their nets when Linda Goldblum passed in 2018. It did take a full year, and there could have been another 70 or 80 home games. It was end of August 2018 to Labor Day 2019 until the Nets went vertically. She was struck in the low section at Dodger Stadium. And why did all those games go on as usual, for 70 calendar dates after she was struck by a ball? Were those people in her row notified that a woman was struck in the head and seriously injured and died a few days later?
Oh,
We learned that this wasn't even in the media for a while, for several months. And there's more to that whole story, but at the end of the day, were people for the rest of September that year notified, or just people in general about a woman? If you're a season ticket holder or if you have a partial season ticket plan, there was a woman struck by a ball here, guys, and maybe you need to pay attention for the next year about not coming, that kind of thing. You will be exposed. What do you say?
really?
People are gonna find this out and say, wait, why weren't we told? It's fair. You should have been told." People go to games, they don't know the impact. Until you experience a close call, you don't know. There could be families who've come to games and they've missed a couple of close calls and they still continued to come back. Now they're going to be pissed if their child ever gets hurt because they knew more than the other fan did, because they knew that ball just came and crushed a can or crushed a beer, and they should have said to themselves right then and there. But I don't really put that emphasis on most fans because they don't know until they experience a close call. And
Mhm.
why isn't management doing more to just educate us over the winter months? Some common courtesy before we've gone to the game. It's not such a tall order. We should have been getting steady doses of reality over the winter about what really happens in the spring and the summer. Never been, never was. And only when you get to the game, they may tell you, even on your cup holder, right in front of you, be careful, or an announcer. What does that mean? We're not superheroes, and the 3 kids are not gonna leave, and it's not enough. It's not responsible. So, I just feel like it's just a disrespectful community of professional baseball. It continues. There's no integrity in baseball. Until we have an honest conversation about this and address the reconciliation and potentially regulation measures, then it's the unknown factors for most. to go to games and not really aware of it all.
Well, and as far as raising awareness, I mean,
Mhm.
it sounds like, I can't imagine how the clubs are, wanting to raise any more awareness, and if the media is complicit, well, then how is the message gonna get out there?
Yeah. Now we hope, others who are listening to this will sign petitions. I rented out 5 airplanes to make some statements over some cities. So if anyone has expendable dollars, I don't need the money. I'll tell you exactly who the plane coordinator is, so you can rent out the next 40 airplanes yourself, and we can make some noise. What are you going to do? You're going to try to buy some full page ads in newspapers. We just want the day of reckoning to come sooner because then we could finally address the solutions. We're in healthy aggression mode. We want to be in 10 years from now in healthy remembrance mode. But certainly all of this history deserves a place, and it will find a place where the conversation could open up. If this point of destination was in place right now, it would be open. It would be more like a learning center, and then hopefully in 10 years from now, it would be fully transitioned into a place of remembrance. People could know the legacy of the foul ball saga. So I have that in mind as well.
What about working with, well, like in our case, the city council members the one who's in the district and then the one that's close to it and then the president? Have you reached out to them? Have you encouraged the fans to reach out to them?
We need to do that. And a couple of people who've come on these recordings wanted to know how they could exactly help us. And we said, take a look at what's happening in your local neck of the woods, what's happening at your ballpark. And I'm happy to help, happy to chime in. But there's 169 cities out there that are not all connected to professional baseball. I mean, they're not all Major League Baseball, they're professional baseball, the affiliates and the other teams. I would say take a look at what's happening in your city and address it and demand some kind of accountability or at least a conversation. Demand what data they had that you should have seen. Let's just finally discover how much mud on your face there really is, and let's move on. All the other stuff is smoke and mirrors. When management has said, and we found quotes years and years in past, management says our fans are telling us they don't want upgraded netting. Anytime these conversations have come up in the last few decades, you'll see quotes from management. Fans are telling us they don't want extended netting. At the same time, management possesses information that could save their lives, and
Mm.
they're not leading with that, are they? So I think people's public perception would change of netting if management called people in every winter and gave them a dose of reality about what just happened this past year and what they can expect for the following year. Exhibit A1 demonstrates just how many foul balls there are, and you guys can put two and two together. It's really like a roadmap for a better understanding of what you may have missed and what you should know.
I did wanna ask you about, Japan. The Nippon Professional Baseball League is, really kind of leading the way on safety, right?
They're certainly out front in cultural respects.
What would it take to shift the mindset here in that way?
Yeah. I mean, they do things that demonstrate that they're clearly paying attention to the issue, and it's still not perfect. They'll demonstrate animation on the scoreboard. Maybe it's a little dark humor, but they'll show somebody getting carted off on an ambulance because they weren't paying attention. All right. They'll have team attendants on every aisle with much higher nets on the sides. So if balls come up and come down, they're blowing whistles alerting you, dog whistles, I guess, that that you need to put your head between your legs, people. Balls coming down, that kind of thing. You don't see the line drives coming at us, at 100 and a half a second. You don't see them. There's still they have something called the Excite seats. They provide a helmet and a glove, sections that over the fence, the home run ball, gives people more time to react. But again, and people may have gloves, but I would say most people who bring gloves, I would say 80% of them, it deflects off the glove anyhow, wherever they are, and it could still do some serious damage. We're not professional baseball players. We bring our glove, it hits the glove and it deflects and it could still hurt somebody.
Yeah.
So why don't we just finally have a conversation about pertinent information that I certainly think you as a family should have learned and known about. And let's decide how disgusting it is for each individual. But we certainly I'm not giving any there's no grade other than an F. There's no grade
Mm.
other than an F because there's no transparency. So you haven't earned anything above an F. You've deceit by not sharing common courtesy, you remain an F. They haven't. Don't tell me you're at a game and they give you warnings. We're not superheroes. We're there already. Where are we going? If people determine they're not safe because this guy has a better baseball IQ than the other families, that he should get the upgrade behind the net. I mean, come on, man. We should all be on a level playing field. Why should a family have to figure out for themselves? Maybe there are a few families that go to customer service when the game starts and says, "Can I have a seat behind the net or in an area that you can reassure me more?" And there's no reassurances nowhere in the ballpark. And if once that's determined, then there's a dialogue about what's appropriate, what's not. Again, it's above our pay grade, but I could certainly spitball and instigate, and I'll do that.
So have you collaborated with any players?
We've interviewed more than 30 baseball players, and that is very telling because they give us indication from their own experiences. It's like the first time they're ever talking about the foul ball experiences outside the inner circle. So they'll tell us things like their own parents have been sitting in sections for many years as they followed their professional journey. Most of these guys played a few years of professional ball, but they didn't make it to the major leagues. But they also told their own parents, you need to sit behind these nets and no ifs and buts about it because they know amongst themselves, like the Queens College players, it's inevitable that one of their buddies are gonna do some serious damage. It's the same that, these guys have to bear the burden of, playing a great game, which is a game I love, and which is a game they love, how their parents don't have the courage to intervene because 'cause they've been adults a lot longer to say, "I'm not gonna have my young adult son be compromised. No how, no way." But they too are drinking the Kool-Aid. So there's a lot to say about that too. So we have just plenty of areas to kinda tap into and why, we're not finally having this discussion. People that don't have any skin in the game, they're ready for this discussion. So that's good. They're not related to any baseball player. They don't work for the game. They just want to know what the facts are. It's a compelling story, and we hope to turn people on to this.
It's wonderful work, and I just
Thank you.
really appreciate you being out there leading the way on this. Do you have any media people who are more friendly or able to more interested in working with you?
Well, we're trying to pass on the torch. We try to tweet 100 baseball writers. There's been a couple of interesting articles over the years that spoke about this issue. But unfortunately, we're waiting for that Atlantic or that New Yorker piece. But they'll have to include all elements of the baseball industrial complex, similar to what Charlie and I developed in our draft of our play, the 45-minute bit, my journey. Part of the baseball industrial complex is all the writers that haven't done enough. Why aren't they breaking rank? And one of them finally saying, I can't do it. I'm a writer. I'm a truth teller. Instead, they're instructed by their editors because the publishers don't want to piss off the teams to just stay with the balls and the strikes and the interviews after the game. They want access to the locker room. It's not good for
Are
business.
are you getting any pushback from statements like, comparing MLB to big tobacco?
I've said that from day one. I have 100 hours worth of lawyers' fees for a reason. Lynn, David, and we'll keep on saying what we need to say. Absolutely.
Do you think you're becoming known in the, among the owners or the
No, I'm a thorn in their side. I spoke to a corporate counsel when I was in the middle of a case. He's the corporate counsel for the St. Louis Cardinals. If I could think of his name, I'd tell you. And he was just feeling me out. The call lasted maybe about 2.5 minutes. He was pretty quick to get off the phone with me. Just wanted to see what I was about. They're the affiliate, the Peoria Chiefs, where we had the lawsuit in Peoria. They're an affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals. But people can go to Foul Ball Safety now, and we do talk about that. Maybe it's in one of the articles. We did get an article in the St. Louis Dispatch newspaper. They were the worst of the worst, Peoria. They had out of the 120 affiliates, they were the one of the 120 that didn't even have netting above the dugout. So crazy. But And unfortunately, there's still some ballparks of those 169 with still no netting above some of the dugout. So obviously more openings and more chances. But improvements are nice, but they're not solutions, and it's not transparent about factual reality because of a netting improvement. We want people just to understand their own experiences, their own times with baseball, and whether they, would rather know about this than not. Well, I think we would. We all want to know if there was something pertinent that we should have saw. So that's what I'll continue to do, and hopefully others will decide to rethink of their own memories and get involved at foul ball safety now.
I would wonder about, like our city council member for the Dodger Stadium is, Gil Cedillo. I wonder if,
I
that's
would
a
love to get on a call with Gil. It's all about we hope we can pass on the torch to another influencer of some kind. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't we?
Tony, so with your background and you owning a market research company, do you feel like it's ethical for the MLB to have marketed family fun and to continue to market family fun?
absolutely not. I'm shocked, I mean, for beyond what I could even express. I mean, the first thing that I can't understand is why there's no data, or if there is data, it's not public data. They must know who's been hurt and how often it happens and who they are and what happened. And I'm heard you say early in the conversation that talking about a settlement, and I'm assuming
Yes.
the settlement also goes along with NDAs and
Yes.
more or less a media blackout. That might be part of the problem.
Oh, no doubt. There's no learning experience situations that come from these settlements. We're aware of several settlements, but most cases don't get filed. We know that because based on the numbers of what we learned just from public and our own data research, the baseball rule clearly has been the elephant in the room, and it's been a deterrent for potential plaintiffs to find attorneys unless it's a high-profile scenario. It's very tough road to hoe, but we just want people to understand what these issues are, and an opportunity for people to jump in. That's where we're at. This is terrific.
That's great. I wanna help you. I wanna thank you. I wanna thank you. I'll
Well,
help you. I
thank
don't know
you.
how to help
Thank you,
you, but
Tony.
it's
Well,
fun.
we'll continue. We really appreciate everyone listening to Foul Ball Safety Now. Please go to the website, Foul Ball Safety Now. Always new editions, and looking forward to the next time. Thanks, everyone.